Hey YouTube, Coppersan here, back for part 2 of our bossing mini-series where we explain several MapleStory bosses. Today on the menu are Chaos Papulatus, Helmut Gollux, or Hellux for short, Princess No, Normal Lotus and Normal Damian. There are timestamps throughout the video for every boss. The first boss of this video is Chaos Papulatus. This blue pigman in a clock has gotten a revamp a few years ago and just hasn't been the same since. This boss is pretty hard to solo. In Reboot I needed at least 15k stats and around 94% ID to even stand a chance on my Shade, but then again Shade is a pretty weak bossing class. Before fighting tough bosses it is always recommended to pop a green and red or blue potion from Monster Park as well as any other attack buffs or guild skills you can get your hands on, unless of course you can easily solo those bosses. I usually bind Papulatus from the get-go just to make sure I can unleash my burst before he tries any funny business, and there is a lot of funny business with this boss. There are 3 main attacks that will kill you a lot in this fight. The first one is where those blue blobs on the ground will appear. Stand on the floor and you're a dead Mapler. The far left and far right side of the map are safe spots, and so when you revive you at least are safe. You can also stand right in between those lit areas, but that's easier said than done, especially with those clocks spawning that after short duration will unleash a beam upwards that will kill you as well. They will always one-shot. But like always, all those attacks can be avoided by skills that give invincibility frames. So to make sure I have as much room to move around in as possible, I usually stick to the upper platforms when the floor becomes lava, but be careful of those grappling hooks that will hook you in place for a few seconds. Those can be very dangerous, as I am here demonstrating totally on purpose. From time to time, Papulatus will also spawn 2 laser beams, a red and blue beam, and if those touch, well then guess what, you're dead again. So you want to body block those lasers as well, while you're already dodging those clock beams, hooks, and being careful of the flooring in case that blue attack is being used by Pap. So as you can imagine, this is a very fun and relaxing boss fight. I usually block the laser on the right, I just find that easier to do. To complicate things even further, Papulatus can also place a debuff on you. This can either be a stun or a skill lock. You'll get a timer above your head, and that timer will always be different than that from Papulatus. And the difference is how long your skill lock or stun will last. So you have to get your time as close as possible to that of the boss. Defeat the smaller monsters and either double or half the time to get it as close as possible, or exactly the same, so there's no debuff at all. Every 2 minutes also an alarm clock will start ringing. Papulatus will go into alarm mode, which will make your HP drop continuously. Bolts will start falling from the sky that deal damage and stun you, and there is a 6-second potion lock. Be mindful of your health, but this also is a great time to deal some damage to Pap. Just keep in mind binding him does not actually do anything in this mode, so save that for later. Once his HP drops below 20%, another mechanic starts. Papulatus can no longer be damaged, and a clock with percentages on it appears. Also on the left side of the clock, a big blue clock-like portal spawns. You can press up on this portal to take out a block that's shown on the clock. Those blocks represent how much of Papulatus' HP will recover after the timer above the clock runs out. And trust me, you really don't want to heal him back up. Defeat the monster that spawn to get blobs of time and move the hands of the clock accordingly. Calculate how much you need and take out those blocks on the clock until either only 0% remains or nothing remains. Be careful of the claws as well, so you don't lose too much time when you're looking for time. Those are all mechanics in phase 1. Defeat the body and let's go to phase 2. This one is actually pretty easy, but don't let your guard down. Papulatus will leave his big clock for his Eggman robot that he flies around in. Papulatus has a few skills and attacks in this phase. For example, he can teleport you around, which is always fun, especially with those lasers that are still moving around. He can also split his body, and those clones have low health but need to be defeated, else they get reabsorbed and Pap heals a bit. Pap can also summon a bomb that deals heavy damage. If you're in a party you can stand close together to reduce the damage, but his skill doesn't one-shot if you're at full health, so even when you're going solo, so it's not too bad. Besides that and the lasers going ham in this phase, there isn't much else for this phase, and his HP is pretty low compared to the first phase. Chaos Papulatus drops an elusive Papulatus mark, which is a really great accessory, but it is also insanely rare. Still worth a shot to try fighting this boss every week though. Next up is your boy Gollux. I hate Gollux and Gollux hates me. It's like a hate-hate relationship. Gollux is a horrible boss and it took me a while to figure out how to dodge his attacks properly. To fight Hellux, the strongest version of Gollux, you don't defeat any of the shoulders or belly, you just go straight for the head, unlike Thor. The head has a few attacks, which are all basically deadly. There is a breath attack, a grabby hand attack and a suck attack, all need to be dodged at all times. Gollux's eyes will briefly lit up before he starts attacking, so if you have good reflexes you can dodge to the other side of his face as soon as you see those eyes lighting up. This is what I always do, at least. If he's facing me and I see his eyes lit up, I immediately dodge to the other side and I'm safe. else you'll have to dodge as soon as he looks at you, and that can slow down your DPS significantly. And if your class has any skill that lures the boss, then it's even easier to dodge as Gollux will basically be distracted. Like right here on my Wind Archer. To complicate things even more, there continuously are potato monsters spawning at the left and right side of the map. If they touch the middle of Gollux, you'll get a stack. Get 5 stacks and you're dead. Oh, and sometimes the game also crashes if you get 5 stacks. So ideally, you don't want that to happen. Once you deplete the first health bar, go up the platform that spawn ASAP. Else Gollux will reverse your controls. Also sometimes he casts an explosion at the bottom that will one-shot you. Pretty nasty stuff in general, especially because the potato monsters will still spawn at the bottom and will still give you stacks if they touch the middle part of Gollux. I usually cast my will skill and other summon skills to help clear those out, because my other attacks on my shade can't reach those little potato monsters. If your class doesn't have an upwards jump skill or anything like that, rope lift can be useful here as well to quickly get back up to the top platform. In this phase there are again grabby hands coming up the platform that will one-shot you. If Gollux is looking at you, that could mean a hand is coming your way. You can jump upwards, downwards, to the side to avoid the hands when it comes, but be quick. Gollux will also periodically cast an explosion skill that deals a ton of damage, but at least doesn't one-shot you. Still, this is a pretty dangerous skill. If you stand on the far edge of the platform, either left or right, Gollux can't hit you with this skill. I just hope that your skills have enough range to actually hit Gollux then. The third phase is a lot easier. Just hit the crystal and make sure you don't get any stacks from the monsters at the bottom. The crystal sometimes also explodes and deals damage, but it ain't much to be concerned about because the damage of that attack is pretty low. When you defeat Gollux and go to the next room, also make sure to hit the crystal to actually get the drops. I still see people every now and then wondering why Gollux doesn't drop anything. Make sure to hit the crystal. And with Gollux down, next up is Princess No. You know, Princess No is hardly a problem. It's that horrible pink will that makes going to Princess No so tedious. In the first stage, after clearing the monsters, a pink will spawns. This will can only take 100 damage at a time, and damaging this will teleport you to a random location on the map. Super annoying. If you have a reflective ring from Oz, you can walk into the will to damage him, or if you for example are a shadower, Dark Flare can work well against this boss. What I do on my shade is I drag the boss down with my skills, because the will usually teleports me downwards, and I use my familiars and other summons to deal damage as quickly as possible. For the next two bosses, I have no tips besides hit them till they die. They don't really do much. The third boss can spawn cages, which can easily be dodged by staying below the boss and not being on the same platform as the boss. Then you'll have finally reached Princess No. The fight itself ain't too crazy. She can spawn monsters that need to be defeated before she can be hit. Your character can also be sealed in there, so make sure to bring all cures, and sometimes she will try to cage you. If you see a small text above the princess with like a bar that says something like Infinity Flames, she will cage you. You can avoid this by either iframing or by timing your hero's will skill with her attack. However, there is also an easy way to just break free from that. You can also just click the portal on the left to leave the map and go back in. It's literally just as easy as that. Her attacks can pack quite a punch, so keep your health in mind. She has about the same HP as Chaos Vellum, but her defense is a lot lower. So if you can clear 3 doors in Root Abyss, you can probably defeat Princess No as well. Next up is Lotus. Lotus can only be fought after clearing the entire Black Heaven blockbuster, which will take a couple of hours. Thankfully, you only need to clear it once per server. Lotus' first phase is quite a challenge, and it will take practice to take that down without losing any lives. In the first phase, there are 4 lasers spinning around. You can walk with the direction of the lasers and use the top platform to teleport to the bottom platform at the opposite side where you're on. So you can either go from top left to bottom right and from top right to bottom left. The bottom platforms, those portal indicators, are only indicators and cannot be used. Only the top platform teleporters actually work. Some classes can also use their mobility skills to dodge the lasers. For example, Shade's backdash and teleport can be used to dodge the laser as well. However, those can be a bit unreliable, especially Shade and Demon Slayer's teleport skill, because they actually target monsters and not a location. And Shade's backdash needs to be used really close to avoid touching the laser and still dying. The lasers will one-shot you though, so be careful about those. If you're having trouble respawning in here and you're dying right away, the resistance link skill will be useful there as well. Lotus will sometimes also speed up or reverse the lasers, so be careful. And once those lasers go Mach 5, all I can say is, yeah, good luck. To make things even more fun in phase 1, small robots will spawn on the map just to annoy you a little bit more. Those are different colors and each have their own status effect. Green robot reverses your keys, the yellow bot slows you, the blue one seals you, and the red bot stuns you. Having high status resistance will help against those a little bit, but generally you want to unalive all those bots as soon as they spawn. There also is debris falling down that will hurt you, and the bigger ones will stun you in normal mode, so keep those in mind as well. Phase 1 can definitely take a bit of practice. Phase 2 on the other hand is a piece of of cake. There still is debris that is falling down, including bigger stuff that deals more damage. Lotus also unlocks a new attack that lifts you upwards, usually into said debris, which isn't always the best thing for your health, so try to avoid those, but usually it's kind of fine in normal Lotus, you don't take that much damage. Lotus' more annoying and deadlier gimmick is that he electrocutes the floor. Platforms will fall down. This is your indicator to either start flying or jump on one of those platforms for safety. But be careful, don't get stunned for example and let a platform land on your head. This takes out the platform completely, removes it, and thus also removes your chance of survival. Sometimes a lot of platforms drop, sometimes only one drop, so be careful. Lotus is a pushy guy and his most frequent attack will push you away and off platforms. The only safe platform is the one on the far left, if that one drops down to begin with. You can't be pushed off that one. You can also fly upwards or jump away and backdash for example, like I'm doing right here, to avoid the push. The lightning doesn't one-shot, but getting hit by it is usually a death sentence. There also is a ball bouncing around in phase 2 that hurts quite a bit. Similar to the debris, you're better off avoiding that one as well. Phase 3 is more of the same, but everything is bigger and deadlier. There are now 2 flaming balls bouncing around, and if you see a massive demolisher coming down, move away, because those will one-shot you, unless you're best class paladin of course, or shade. The lightning is a bit more delayed now, so when you see the platforms coming down, make sure to wait for the right timing. You can also actually bind Lotus as soon as the platforms come down, and then the lightning attack will be cancelled. Lotus can also place down a slow zone, which is super annoying and makes dodging debris a lot more difficult. And his purple bombs of death are also quite troublesome. For this attack, Lotus will float up in the air and becomes untargetable, shooting purple balls at marked areas. Those will one-shot you, so avoid those at all costs. And of course, while keeping an eye on the debris falling down, you don't want to get stunned and take one of Lotus's balls to the face. In Reboot, I could solo this boss around 20k stats and with 95% ID. The final boss of this video is Damian. Mechanically, I actually prefer Damian over Lotus. I find it a lot easier to stay alive in this fight compared to Lotus. Damian can be unlocked after just clearing part 4 of the Heroes of Maple blockbuster. This boss only has 2 phases, but there is quite a bit of stuff happening, but it ain't too crazy. First of all, every time you get hit by Damian's attack, or when the timer in that special UI reaches 0, you'll get a stack, or someone else if you're in a party. Get 7 stacks and you'll die. An additional sword will spawn as well that you kinda want to avoid at all time. One of those swords is annoying enough already. Getting 7 stacks also increases the crystal count, which will launch Damian's more annoying second phase faster if it ever gets filled up. Every now and then an altar will spawn that can be used to cleanse away your stacks by holding down spacebar, but if you get hit by anything, the action is cancelled and you'll have to wait for the next altar. The swords that are flying around every now and then will also start targeting players and crash down to the ground, creating a zone that explodes every now and then. It is safe to move through this zone every second or so, but when it explodes, you're dealt 99% damage of your HP, so be kinda careful around those. Keep the ticks in mind when you're moving through those, and lure the swords to a spot where you want it to drop down to prevent any unfortunate positions, like for example right on an altar where you want to cleanse, or when you're stuck between an exploding sword and one of Damian's attacks. Damian also has a dash and dive attack. Duck behind him to avoid those, or just stand below the dive attack. It's pretty okay to avoid those, and they also won't kill you right away, but you'll get a stack, and if you're hit you'll also be knocked away. Damian can also summon those black steam demon marks on the ground that will explode after a few seconds, killing anyone who's in them. And there also are those blue balls in the sky. Those will claw down after a few seconds, triggering a quick time event. Press the keys in the right order to escape, or you'll be stunned for quite a couple of seconds. The more status resistance you have, the less arrows you'll have to press though, so status resistance is again pretty nice here. But speaking of balls, Damian's final attack in phase 1 is his fireball attack. He flies up in the air and rains down lots and lots of balls. Those are pretty slow and can be avoided easily, but be careful of any sword that's chasing you. And I believe you can also use Dark Side to avoid those flaming balls of his. His second phase starts when Damian either has 30% of his HP left or the crystal stack reaches 7. Thankfully there are no more flying swords in phase 2 unless someone gets 7 stacks, but cleansing is actually a bit easier in phase 2 in my opinion. Damian has a few new attacks as well. His fireballs are still the same, but they just changed color. His dive attack now targets the player with the most stacks and one-shots now, so be careful for this one, you actually gotta dodge it this time. His dash can also be dodged when you duck at the right time, but you'll have less reaction time because the attack is a bit faster, but you can dodge it and you're safe, or just move out of the way. The grabby handballs are still the same and they're still here as well. And then now is a spatial rip and tear skill that leaves 3 slashes that explode after a few seconds. Those one-shot you if you stand in them, but you can also squeeze between them or dodge them completely to avoid any damage. One of his more annoying new attacks is his Fireball Tornado. Avoid those balls by either standing directly on top of Damian or move to the edge of the map to avoid them completely. Then there is this Root Trap. Damian binds the entire map and you have to press left and right real quick to escape a la Pierre. But that ain't all, you'll also have to deal enough damage to him to make sure Damian doesn't unleash his full attack, which will deal 200% of your HP as damage. To make things worse during this whole fight, there also are big blue orbs floating around. Those work kinda similar to Magnus' zone. If you are in their range, you'll deal only a fraction of your damage and healing items and skills are reduced as well. Plus, you'll take continuous damage, which is always lovely. It also most certainly doesn't help that more orbs will spawn the lower Damian's HP gets. So if you are planning to unleash your burst, make sure to first lure those orbs away before you actually do that. What I noticed during my fights with Damian is that he tends to respawn himself after a few seconds to the left side of the map. So I place down my summons over there and lure the orbs to the right before jumping back in to start my bind and burst. This is definitely easier when you are with multiple people, so one person can lure the orbs away and the other person can burst. Again, in Reboot, my shade can solo this boss around 20k stats and with 95% IAD. And that was it. I hope this video helps clear up some boss fights and makes it a bit easier for you. And as always, many thanks to our members for making this video possible. Thanks to Niels to Coninck, Raar maar waar, Sebastian, Hanoy, Hellux, Ryalias, Terry Kim, Vareese, Saudi Mora, Wiley, Francisco Sousa, Historycanon, BackSpaceOTI, Saffronyx, Lonzo BG Extremes, Anwar NHI, Frank Bouget, Ziggy Deer, Flidiot, Beamer WT, Knifesu, Chen125, Cloudfix, Gusus Rodriguez, Froggy11, Sir Tito 655, Gleason, Brendan Cam, Vyra, Trevor, Michael Machaka, Ratius, Lucky Beats, Justin Vale, Silvio Nato, Stevie Zhang, Afterlord_MS, Heopan, ceemak, Joshua Alvarez, Striker Elk, Nockem SS, Niu, Taiwan Pan, Victor Sunstrom, Radicals the Alien, Stanislaus Kosumo Vegas, Riser RU, Eddie Reacts to Things, Dular, Gummy Bullet, Leon Riddle, Booty Warrior GT, Jeremy Stodler, Mr. Anarch, Lovebird, Rev Soli, Yuruski TV, Yo Mama, Mathias Simonsson, Caveman, oh yeah, and Gerlando Bolivia. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe and happy mapling!